Ladies and gentlemen, it's the CBSI BOLO Show! Now sit back and relax as Brian and Jack recap first appearances, reader buzz, and hottest variants in comic books releasing each and every week. Coming to you from an unidentified command center, here's your host, Brian Wood!
Welcome everybody, it is Thursday night, so it is the CBSI BOLO Show. We have a great show planned for you tonight. We're going to recap last week's hot books, we're going to go into this week's hot releases, but before we get into that, I have my co-host with me, Jack DeMeo, aka Mr. Bolo. What's going on, buddy?
Not much, man. What's going on, Brian? Real excited to be here, as he said. For any new subscribers, any new viewers, I am Jack DeMeo, aka Mr. Bolo. CBSI, comicbookinvest.com, content manager, co-host right here, the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel. Real excited to be here. The highlight of my week is this Thursday live show, and I am so ready to talk comics.
Right, so bringing us both in here real quick. We had a great show last night. We had the live premiere of the weekly Hot Cold List. Fantastic turnout with that, and we just got a new subscriber to the channel on Rice Smelts, so thank you for that. But the live chat for a premiere for us last night was fantastic, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it really blew me away. Hitting some record numbers for us on the channel for a live show. And I'm hoping that that is a trend that is going to continue. I also think I have to say that the Hot and Cold show was a good show last night. I was real happy with the picks. Shout out to the comic Jabroni, who is our guest picker this week. If you're not subscribed to his channel, check it out. We were actually sharing his video in the CBSI chats today, talking about Ninja Turtle spec. So I was real happy with how that was, and you guys were awesome in the chat.
Yeah, so speaking of the chat, we got people rolling into the chat on this show right now as we speak. So, as always, live is a different animal. So you guys in the chat, let us know how the audio is, the video is, and if any problems, we can try to get that corrected. But people in the chat right now, we got Hawaiian Punch 72, the Comic Book Homie, John McElroy, Shane Griffin, Comic Man Andy, a bunch of regulars and some new faces. Always love seeing new faces and the regulars, of course. But Tim Walker himself is in the chat with us tonight. We got Luis Ramirez, 504, Sarah, Mr. McNulty, which is good for you because you've been watching The Wire.
Oh, yes. I'm full McNulty mode.
And so, yeah, with that, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say it.
With that being said?
I'm not going to say it. I probably will later, but.
We need a with that being said shirt.
It'll come, I'm sure. That's just natural. But as always, this show does have a sponsor, and it comes from Nick Dwertman at Slabbed Heroes. Fantastic guy. Check out slabbedheroes.com, especially if you want modern comics, guaranteed 9.8 at a great price, and shipped with care. Check out slabbedheroes.com. Another thing, we hit a major milestone on Simpleman's Comics channel today, didn't we?
Oh, man, yes. One that we have been anticipating for a little while, but maybe came up a little quicker than we were expecting.
Right. So today on Simpleman's Comics channel, thanks to you guys and everyone watching, Patreon supporters, Simpleman's Comic family, everyone, we hit 5,000 subscribers on the channel. So kudos to that. Got the little lights flashing in the background for it. But we're going to keep going, hopefully, right? Try to make content that you guys want and keep the family growing. We always say it's family here. So, and we truly mean that. We like to foster a community where everyone's talking about comics and everyone has a good time and enjoys the content that we put out. So we always listen to comments that you guys provide. And if there's any content that you'd like to see that we haven't been putting out, by all means, let us know. And we'll try to make that happen for you. Right, Jack?
Oh, absolutely. And just to kind of piggyback on what Brian said, this was a big milestone for Brian and I. I mean, especially I got to give a shout out to Brian because, I may be the co-host on the channel and we've partnered together for probably about the last year. But Brian's been building this channel for a long time on his own, grinding, doing the weekly picks, doing everything. And, I'm the overly ambitious guy who jumps in and says, man, we need to push to this and we need to push to that. And but Brian's the guy that really takes all my crazy ideas and makes them happen. So I really got to give all credit due to Brian. He's the Batman to my Robin for sure. But he's right when he says Simpleman's Comics family because we've grown to where we are from your word of mouth, from you guys spreading our links, from letting people know about the shows and the channel, and then being so awesome in the chat. I can't tell you guys how much that is an integral part of like any live show, is the ability for people to come in and have a conversation. Brian and I have taken part in other channels' live shows, and they haven't had that chat going like we've had, and that's you guys. That's not us. So we really appreciate that, and that's especially, again, our Patreon supporters who are going hard. I just got on the Discord train. The Discord chat is crazy. So, shout out to you guys. The whole Simpleman's Comics family has really been helped us push to this point, and we're not done yet. Absolutely not.
Right.
We have bigger goals, more things we want to do.
Yeah. And it even goes further. We mentioned the live chat, but all the people that comment on the videos, definitely appreciate that. I try to make it a priority to respond to every comment. There's times where some get missed, but I try to go back and at least acknowledge it, because you guys make this channel what it is, and from the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate that, and I'm extremely grateful. But one other thing we wanted to bring up, we have everyone. I don't know if everyone was familiar with FOMO the puppet, but we had him on Topher S, who does his speculation picks. Sometimes he's the mass speculator. And then a while back, out of nowhere, he brought in a puppet called FOMO. And the reaction was priceless. We got a lot of great comments on it. People were requesting, hey, I want a FOMO t-shirt. So, if you aren't aware, we do have FOMO t-shirts now. SimpleMansComics.com/merch. There's FOMO t-shirts up there, Simpleman's t-shirts, a couple other different t-shirt designs as well. But they are available, and I wanted to make sure that you guys know that, because people were asking for it, and we wanted to provide it. So shout out to Topher for creating them, and people are asking, where is FOMO? I talked to Topher today. He is working on a new FOMO video, so he will be coming soon.
Yes, there will be more FOMO.
That could be good or bad, right? Because we don't know what's coming out of his mouth, but
definitely that creepy picture he had of me at his desk last time. So you never know what FOMO is going to bring next. But kind of like what Brian said when we're talking about hitting the 5K milestone, we put the little FOMO video out, that all credit due to Topher. That was completely his creation. But you guys started saying in the chat, well, we need a FOMO show. And when I tell you guys that I read those comments and I take that seriously, I do. So we made that happen for you guys, and we appreciate that. And again, we're just trying to have fun with comics.
Right. So last week we announced exclusively on this show that it was available, and it's still up for pre-order. There are a few copies left, and that is the CBSI exclusive homage variant to Sarah and the Royal Stars from Vault Comics. Available now at comicbookinvest.com. Been taking pre-orders. I know there's not a lot left, but there are a few still available, and that's going to be shipped out. Ben C said he received them in hand today, and they will be shipping out release day of the 17th, right?
Yeah, we ended up getting them early, so it's going to end up going out on time. Originally, we thought there'd be like a 5-day lag time between when we got them versus when we could get them out. So we're going to get them in your guys' hands quickly. And it's important to note that we printed up half as many as we did the Queen of Bad Dreams variant. So this is a much more limited variant. It won't last as long. We lowered the price as well. So definitely, if you haven't picked one up, we're a week away from release date. Numbers are dwindling on them. So be sure to hit that comicbookinvest.com, hit that variant tab, and check them out. And again, they're $17. $2 goes to the St. Jude's Children's Foundation. That's on every copy purchased. And it does not include shipping, but that is for you guys. So you guys can make those multiple copy purchases. You can get in on the ground floor, spec on Sarah and the Royal Stars with us.
Right. So before we get into the recap of last week's books, there's some other people coming into the chat now. Jacob Ramirez just put in there, he's wondering if we could cover more first appearance list, if you can find any new characters from Marvel and DC, and just answer my question, but our first appearances, new characters. So most of the time, yes, right? First appearances is mostly a new character. Sometimes,
right.
I mean,
sometimes it can be a team. Sometimes it can be an
new
item
uniform.
Like a new uniform, right?
Costume.
And costumes. It can be all kinds of things. It's a difficult thing to maneuver. So even if you're new, don't feel bad, because even for us veterans, that can be difficult to figure out. And for me, when I'm putting together this BOLO list, it's kind of become the damned if I do, damned if I don't sort of a situation where if I include something that's questionable, people get mad. If I don't include something, people get mad. So it's really kind of tough. So you got to kind of see what the market bears and make your own kind of decisions on which first appearance to go with and which one not to.
Right. So we're going to roll into the recap for last week and probably the hottest book of the week, which we thought was going to be something else, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 95 seems to be the hot book of last week. And you can tell from Facebook groups, 60 different sequential posts in a row about this book, about 51, but 95 kind of caught people off guard, including ourselves until like the night before, right? But
right.
Go ahead. I'll let you talk about this book, Jack.
I didn't have it on the BOLO list. You know, it is what it is. Like, because again, the BOLO list isn't my picks. It's what you guys are talking about. And certainly nobody was talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 95 until the book dropped. It was late in the night, Tuesday night. And I had already submitted the list when we even found out about what was going to be happening. And then there were so many questions about, is this going to be like a last page splash page deal? And for those of us who have been speccing for a long time, especially those of us who have played in the Ninja Turtle kind of ballpark before, TMNT has done these kind of big cliffhanger events and then pulled them back. We had the death of Donatello and the death of Splinter, which didn't really hold up. We had the legitimate death of Shredder, but then Shredder came back with a new kind of form. So there's been a lot of these sort of events, and we didn't really know how this was going to play out, but IDW kind of heard that from the community, and they put out a lot of information over this week that really solidified the spec in this book. We know that Jenny, the new Ninja Turtle, the fifth Ninja Turtle, is going to don the yellow bandana in issue 97, put out by creative director of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and writer Tom Waltz, who has been really the integral part of this IDW series. He's kind of an unsung hero in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle lore. Obviously, everybody knows Kevin Eastman, everybody knows Peter Laird, but Tom Waltz has really been the man spearheading this IDW Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles imprint. And this character, Jenny, was created by the artist Sophia Campbell more than 2 years ago. And they've had this kind of character on ice waiting to go. So this issue has not slowed down. Prices dropped maybe a little bit from where we were last week, but that's really just due to market supply. A lot of people have started to get their copies in from online orders. So you've seen a depression in values to a small extent. But again, cover A and cover B still selling for $25 to $30. The 1 in 10 incentive still selling between $80 and $100. And these are huge prices for 1 week old IDW releases. Also, if you follow us on Instagram, you'll see that I had posed the question to Tom Waltz about the second print coming for 95, and he confirmed that there will be new cover art. Now, we haven't seen that cover art yet. We don't know what it'll be. I think we're all crossing our fingers, hoping that Jenny and that kind of last page image is going to be depicted on the cover, but we'll see. We'll see what route they go with it. But IDW is very aware they have a monster on their hand. Issue number 51 has exploded, the first appearance of Jenny in the series before she became a turtle. It is incredibly valuable, and it's an important book.
Yeah, it exploded Kevin Eastman's website.
Right, yes. So I had to put a post up today on the CBSI Facebook and basically said, okay, everybody, stop posting about your Kevin Eastman emails because we all got them. I got 2 of them. So the reality is we all got our orders canceled. That website went crazy. And, yeah, so I hope you guys were able to pick up copies from other sources. Make sure you're hitting those LCSs, man. This is a book that's a few years old. And, you know, people sleep on Ninja Turtles. And there's tons of stores out there that don't pay attention to what goes on in the speculative community. They're not up on the YouTube comic community. They could care less about CBSI. So make sure that you're hitting those long boxes. If you're in any conventions, look for those discount variant boxes. You're going to find some 51s out there cheap. We just had people in the community let us know today that they found some cover A's for $1. We've seen people finding the incentive variant for as little as $10. So they're out there, guys. There's also some other important issues like 52, Jenny becomes unmasked. 56, she starts working with Splinter, becomes kind of his number 2. She's heavily featured in 59, which is also that kind of fake Splinter death issue. Again, the Free Comic Book Day issue, she's heavily featured, leads into this story. She's also on the cover of 92 cover B. All of this is getting hot. And if you saw my Instagram post today, I've been picking up Turtles IDW incentives regardless of the number, because so many people are now jumping on the Turtle train. And these books that were often sleepy books selling for $3 to $10 are now starting to dry up on the market and are primed for an explosion.
Yeah, and when everyone's getting aware of those Kevin Eastman books, Paul Wiederhold, who's a big Ninja Turtle fan, Tales from Flipside, CBSI community guy, we were chatting in Hangouts, and he ordered some, and I said, yeah, I ordered a couple. And then he's like, hey, let me put 200 in my cart. And I was like, yeah, if I let you put that much in, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some emails going out like, sorry for your luck, but we can't fulfill your order, because there's no way that I could see 200 being available on his site. And come to find out, it's proven true, because a lot of us have gotten emails. I got one as well, but so Ninja Turtle number 95, and it's a good thing that we're talking about it, because also Comic Jabroni just came into the chat. So again, big shout out to him on his pick this week. Really appreciate it, and he freaking crushed it.
And got to give him a shout out, because he was probably one of the earliest people on TMNT 95. I said this on the Hot and Cold show, but if you guys didn't watch, I put that info out pretty early, and I got a lot of credit for that. But people kept tagging the Comic Jabroni in it and saying, he was early. And I went and watched his video. I was like, oh, man, he was on this thing well before me. Yeah. So shout out to him, super knowledgeable TMNT guy, and we're definitely going to want to work with him again in the future.
Yeah. I even told Jack, hey, Edwin just talked about this on Passerby, Buyer Pastor Tuesday live stream with Just a Rican in his comics. He was talking about 95. So, yeah, we're definitely making sure that the credit also goes to people that brought that up. So
absolutely, all credit due, without a doubt.
So, but also in last week's recap, another hot book which started getting overshadowed now from Ninja Turtles, and that's The Walking Dead number 93.
Oh, big time, right? So now Walking Dead number 93. Obviously, we're talking about the final issue in the epic Walking Dead story. We get the 5-year time lapse. We get the kind of happy ending, real meta ending. Obviously, if you guys tuned in last week or watched our micro content, I did a little retailer rant. I got to say, I love the way that was received. Did major hits on the channel. We ended up clocking over 4,500 hits on last week's episode with combined content. And definitely The Walking Dead was the most polarizing. Certainly did I get a lot of comments that were negative? Sure. But I feel like, again, if somebody's really commenting that way, they're not really listening. It's certainly, I'm not coming from a place of entitlement.
Yeah.
I'm coming from a place of just a member of the community, and we hear what you guys talk about and go through on a weekly basis. And I just wanted to relate what I went through to you guys. So I was really happy with the response to that video. There were a lot of positive comments, and I actually was so surprised how many people from my little hometown in South Carolina reached out and said, man, I've had the same thing happen at that store. So I thought that was kind of cool that the Fort Mill comic community was kind of talking and conversating right here on the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel. So that really blew me away. But yeah, this issue is still on fire. Prices have dropped a little bit. It's going to about $20 to $30. It was at a high of about $50. The second print has been solicited already, but it looks like we're only getting a trade dress change to like a silver trade dress. Also, be aware, Simpleman's Comics fam, that stores are going to heavily order this. I've even seen stores offering it for free as an incentive with other purchases. So I don't think the second print is going to hold weight in the secondary market. But if you didn't get a copy and you want to read it, that is your opportunity to do so. Another thing to be on the lookout for is San Diego Comic-Con. They announced today that there's a San Diego Comic-Con variant for Walking Dead number 193. And I know Brian and I talked about this before the show, that we weren't going to go heavy plug in the Patreon, but I'm going to make one little plug here. But there will be an exclusive San Diego Comic-Con BOLO list for Patreon members that will be on the Patreon page. I'm in the process of working on that right now. So, again, you're going to want to be a part of that community, and so you can get that exclusive content like that San Diego Comic-Con BOLO list. But, yeah, this issue doesn't see, again, it was my long-term play of the week last week. I don't think this one's going to slow down. I think the importance of this issue is going to be there forever, and I think we're going to see that more and more as time goes on. And there was even some Walking Dead casting news today that got Walking Dead number 131 hot. So, Walking Dead is still kind of in the minds of speculators.
Right. Speaking of bolos for San Diego Comic-Con, we interviewed Adrian and Damian Wasso on this channel from Vault Comics, and he DM'd me today a PDF advanced read copy of their upcoming title, Mall, which is coming out. And he also said that they're going to be giving away, they're going to have ash cans available at their booth if you're going to San Diego Comic-Con. So definitely check that out. Love the advanced issue that he gave me to read. It's kind of sweet that with Walking Dead coming to an end, Mall coming up as that only thing they have similarities wise is kind of an apocalypse type story that takes place where all civilization is taking place in this one mall, and there's class, upper class, lower class fighting against each other, and then different gangs and fractions. So it's kind of like Mad Max in a mall. But I enjoyed the first issue, and that's the most I'm going to say about it, because if I try to talk anymore, I give horrible comic reviews. So we're just going to move right on. That wraps up the recap, and we're going to bring up this week's BOLO list. And as always, if this is your first time here or not familiar with the BOLO list, BOLO for one stands for Be on the Lookout. So that's our weekly Be on the Lookout list for new books that are coming out. And on it, we cover first appearances, reader buzz, and variant buzz. Anything else you want to say about it, Jack?
I just want to kind of talk before we get into the first appearance list about something that we're hearing in the community. Again, we listen to everything you guys say. And I want to talk about cameo versus first appearance, first full appearance. And I want to say to anybody who's new and like reaching out and talking to us about this, I feel bad for you because I don't have a good answer for you. I've had a lot of people reach out to me and go, well, what's a cameo versus what's a first full? There was a great discussion on the Facebook group started by Sean Wright. It was a post about Ninja Turtles. But we get this all over the place. There's a first appearance on this list in Naomi number 6, which, again, first appeared in issue number 5. And really the only reason I included it in 6 is there was already so many people calling it a first full versus cameo. I got to tell you guys, gets confusing for me because I stand from a standpoint, and Brian and I have talked about this before. First appearance is a first appearance. First time you show up, that's your first appearance. Who's to say what's a cameo? Well, it's 1 panel, 2 panels. Does the person speak? And even if you try to quote me what you think the rules are, I can give you examples of books on the market where the market decided against those rules. So I really think that it's kind of like the first book that gets deemed a first appearance. That's what people jump on. So it's really tough, guys. And there's never going to be, say, a consensus. So I think my biggest suggestion, and I think that this really applies to Ninja Turtles right now, is don't waste your time arguing first appearances. Whatever the market wants to do, let it do. I'll make money selling Ninja Turtles 51 and 52 if somebody wants to call that the first appearance. I don't really care. And I'm not going to have a dog in the fight. Do I think 51 is the first appearance? Absolutely. But if somebody wants to buy that 52 and pay a premium price, I'm absolutely going to be there to sell it to them. So, I think that we as a community need to kind of grasp that idea that, unfortunately, this is going to be an argument that's always going to be had. So as soon as I put this BOLO list out, I got people getting on me about Naomi. And it's one of those things where I said in the intro, it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Because if I didn't include it on the list, I still would have gotten comments of people telling me this book was a first appearance or that book was a first appearance. And yeah, again, obviously the first appearance list does not include all first appearances, as we have to get this list out earlier and earlier to try to make content deadlines. And in order to do that, we rely on retailers giving us that information. But retailers are often real busy on Tuesdays, filling out those subscription boxes, making sure they're getting those comics bagged and boarded. So sometimes that information comes in late and whatnot. So I had a good feeling about that Weapon XXX first appearance coming out, but I just didn't want to put it on that list as confirmed. So that's another first appearance that's out there in that, the Captain America Weapon X book. So that's been one that's been speculated on pretty heavily in the last couple of days. So I'll include that one as well before we get into the first appearance list.
And I'm not saying it. So we're going to roll right into the first appearances for the week. So we got them up here online. Kind of a smaller list compared to last week, but we did have 3 coming up, and we're going to go right into it with the first one, which was the giant-sized X-Statics #1, right?
Right, and I think I should have put new You Go Girl rather than just You Go Girl, and I wouldn't have gotten so many people trying to tell me that You Go Girl already existed.
Go girl.
But yeah, this is a newer version. This is a Mike Allred project. I don't believe there's going to be. If you're just asking my opinion on spec, I don't think this is like a real character to spec on. Having said that, I actually heard from some readers who really enjoyed this book. Mike Allred has his fans too. There's a lot of people that really love his art. It's not really for me. It's not really my type of thing. But he's always kind of had his core audience. So I also don't expect this book to be like crazily heavily printed. So it's one to keep an eye out for. Maybe it's one to grab and check out and read if you're an X fan. But it's a You Go Girl is a character that's been around since I think the early 2000s, and I haven't read this issue, so I don't know if there's like a new. I don't know what the dynamic of the new version of the character is, and to be honest with you, I'm not really familiar with the original one. But yeah, it was definitely worth putting on the list. So like when we talked about what constitutes a first appearance, obviously You Go Girl exists, but now we have a newer person as You Go Girl. So therefore it's deemed a first appearance by the market.
Right. You said X-Statics. I got all excited thinking there was going to be a Static X comic because a comic about his lifestyle and music, that'd be awesome. But we got You Go Girl. And with so we're going to roll into the next one.
Yeah, you can't help it.
Which is Naomi #6. You see the hype has started to die down, right? This is the last story in the Bendis' first arc for this. I'm still on board. I still think there's a lot of potential for this character, as we've said on this show. But I understand people's hype dying down because the last couple issues haven't been as great as I enjoyed the issues 1 and 2 a lot, and then kind of felt like we kept being teased in the solicit that this is going to be the issue, and it kept kind of dragging on. But slow burns are good. What do you have to say about this one, Jack?
Yeah, this was one of those ones. I agree with what you said. DC definitely worked us on the solicits. Having said that, I think people are saying, oh, Naomi died down, and they're pointing at the market. Guys, I kind of think that this is one of those like things that just happens in the market.
Rope-a-dope.
Yeah, when you look at the early issues. The early issues no one saw coming. So retailers didn't order them. So issue 1, issue 2, and issue 3. When they came out, there was a deficit between the demand and the supply. Well, what did retailers do? And they're smart for doing it, but they heavily ordered issues 4, issues 5, and issue 6. So those issues became much more accessible, which of course didn't drive secondary market pricing. Now there's still first appearances in those issues. We finally got Naomi in her costume in those issues. So I personally believe this entire set is important. And we just saw Bendis has made a lot of announcements recently. They're going to increase the number of Wonder Comics titles, so there's more titles coming. They're going to integrate characters. There's going to be some crossovers. And we were just talking about this in the Discord chat, but if you look at the solicits for September, Action Comics 1015 features Naomi on the cover of cover A. She's going to be in the Action Comics story. That's why we've been talking about Naomi as a long-term play for a long time, because DC is behind this character more than just some like almost side imprint. She is going to get integrated into the regular DC universe. I think she's going to be an important character. The DC really needs some diversity within their characters, so I think that she's going to be able to provide something, a little bit of flavor that doesn't exist currently in the DC universe. And I'm very excited to see where it's going to go. And it's one of those things, like, because people have faded off of it, there's a lot of buying opportunities. Those Naomi #1s are like cheaper than they ever have been, even graded copies. So, kind of like when we watch the hot and cold show, Brian and I talk about this all the time. Cold items we get more excited about than hot items, because hot items, it's a time to be selling. Those cold items, that's where you have those opportunities to buy. There's a lot of opportunity to buy on Naomi right now. And Brian Michael Bendis has already let us know that Naomi will be back, and that, this was always planned to be 6 and then take a break because I'm drawing a blank on the artist right now, but the
Jamal
artist
Campbell.
Jamal Campbell has another project that he had already had in the works. So Jamal Campbell's got to go work on that project, and then he'll be back to do Naomi. And there will be more Naomi coming real soon. So in the meantime, you're going to get her in the pages of Action Comics with Brian Michael Bendis. And I think that's only going to increase her clout within the industry. And be on the lookout for that issue for sure. Because I think that, obviously we're talking about it pre-FOC, things can happen. But a lot of times Action Comics gets under-ordered.
Right. So then the last one for the first appearance portion of this list this week was War of the Realms, Omega #1, Valkyrie. And you better respect Valkyrie. First appearance,
Yeah.
Jane Foster Valkyrie. What do you got to say about this, Jack?
Yeah, Brian, don't you know we're hoarding copies of this one? Yeah. But that's in reference. We write an article for comicbookinvest.com, the Wednesday Warriors. If you guys don't check it out, I want to put the plug in there, comicbookinvest.com. It comes out every Wednesday, a lot of times Tuesday nights, most times Tuesday nights. And it's really Brian and my personal picks. We're just kind of going head-to-head, trying to see who can kind of best the other. And we're talking great reads, great variants, first appearances. But there's only a select number of categories, so we can only pick a select number of books. And we didn't include this book, either of us, and somebody came at us very hard for not including this book. But I'll tell you why I'm not trying to down on this book, but why I don't love this book as long-term spec. I think there's a value in grabbing it, grabbing a couple copies to kind of see what happens. But Jane Foster, it's not her first appearance. She obviously appeared in the What If issue way, way, way back as Thor, and then she was Thor, and she's appeared. Her first ever appearance in comics, I don't even know the issue, is way back. And, she had the Thor run in, 2014, that Thor #1. And then Valkyrie, not a new character. And we know with speculation, everything ties into movies. There is a Valkyrie in the MCU. It's played by Tessa Thompson. And obviously she's very different from Jane Foster as Valkyrie. And Tessa Thompson's character exists in the comics in the Exiles series. And that first appearance has already been in demand. So as a speculator, I don't know that Jane Foster as Valkyrie is something that I see a lot of long-term heat in. Here's the other thing. She also appeared in the Thor issue that came out the same day. So
I was going to say there's a origin of the origin. Trace
Right.
Buster in Thor #15 this week. There's a panel in there where she's looking at the sword, saying there needs to be a Valkyrie. But yeah,
and that's one of those things. Whenever you have kind of two first appearances that come out simultaneously, you're making it more difficult for a book to pop, because now you're gonna have people sitting on both sides of the fence about what book to speculate on. You just increase the number of copies that are created altogether. And most of the time, historically, that's equaled bad news for speculators. And so, yeah, my general feeling on this first appearance, I agree with Jason. I'm going to butcher your last name, Dolly, and say, that was kind of my response to this first appearance was...
don't get all choked up over it now.
Yeah, it choked me out there. But yeah, sorry, Jason Aaron. But, my whole reaction to that was kind of... it's another thing. It's really them trying to find a use for Jane Foster at this point, because they built her up once they made her Thor. And I think that they don't want to just kind of cast her aside. But now that she's not Thor anymore, there's, a limited role. So, it's one of those things where I don't see necessarily a huge play there, but certainly it's an important book if you're like a real big Thor fan. It's a good book. It's a PC book for, those kinds of collectors.
Right, and that's going to wrap up the first appearance section of the BOLO list tonight. So before we roll into the reader buzz, more people have rolled into the chat. Also, I want to take the time, I shouted them out in the chat last night, but during the live premiere of the Hot and Cold list, Cantankerous, thank you again for the, as I stutter, super chats. Really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And also, there was another guy who's down there who kind of thought we were alive at the time, right? And it was Otto Octavius. He's hunting down in Mexico City right now. He's comic book hunting, looking for the Spidey Mexican variants, but want to give him a shout out as well. He asked for a shout out in the premiere. We couldn't do it because it was pre-recorded, so we're giving him a shout out now. More people wrote in the chat as well. We got Pope, Elephant in the Room, Wrathchild America. We got God Tank, Noose Peruse, Wolf Warner. So a lot of regulars and a lot of new names as well. Really appreciate it. And we're going to go right in now to the Reader Buzz section of the week. And this one's a little bit heftier than the first appearances. Some great books coming out.
For sure.
I went by my LCS today and picked up some of my books. So far, I've only read Reaver and Thor, but looking forward to catching up on the rest of those. But we're going to roll right into it. First on the Reader Buzz section was the Black Hammer and Justice League, right?
Right. So this book, I think, is the antithesis of Reader expect. Obviously, it's been optioned by Legendary Pictures for a real unique kind of option deal where it involves both movies and TV. But obviously, crossing over with the Justice League, we're not going to see the Justice League show up in any sort of Black Hammer TV show or anything like that. This is just a fun crossover, very similar to what we've seen DC IDW do. This was actually released by Dark Horse, which is why like your variant style is similar to Dark Horse, where you've got the 5 covers. And we've talked about this on the show before. It really kind of hurts speculation on a book when there are so many covers, because you're going to get people split opinions on which cover is the best cover, which one to go for. And usually if a book pops at all, it'll be that A cover. So that's something to keep an eye out for. But you know what? This is just a book to have fun with. If you enjoy Black Hammer, if you enjoy Jeff Lemire, if you enjoy kind of the world that he has created, it's kind of cool to see these characters interact with those of the DC universe. It reminds me a lot of Batman and TMNT, but at the same point, Batman and TMNT ended up with an animated movie, so I guess who really knows? But anything is possible. But yeah, this one really, speculation value, I don't know. Reader Buzz, something to check out. If you're a Black Hammer fan, go grab those 5 covers and throw them in the PC. Again, comics are supposed to be fun. Buy what you like, and you'll never be disappointed with your collection. And I think this book is a prime example of that.
Right. Then, like we talked, actually on the hot cold last night, Black Hammer was actually one of those cold picks, or cold, yeah, it was cold pick.
Right.
I believe Pino Reda picked it, and we talked about all the upside for it being cold and why it was worth picking up copies. But this is one of those ones, as we even discussed, and you just said it again, great story. Black Hammer does have a fan following behind it. Combine that with Justice League, and it'll be interesting to see how it plans out. I think this one might be more of a reading pile than a spec pile, but you never know with this stuff. But
well, the only thing that I will sit there and say maybe, because I've been on, that's the train I've been on with this book, is if Black Hammer, when it gets adapted, has that like Umbrella Academy level buzz, then some of these books that aren't heavily printed, even if they're not necessarily keys for the show, may start drying up as more and more people want to add Black Hammer to their collection.
I'll tell you another thing that would make this thing go off like wildfire is if a member in Black Hammer, a character in Black Hammer, ends up on Justice League.
Yeah, and which is more possible than the other way around.
Yep. Much
more possible, because you never know. Lemire owns the characters. He could always sell a character or do a deal with DC. That's absolutely plausible. And it's important to note today that Lemire is doing deals with DC, because today DC Comics announced 2 new DC Black Label series coming from Jeff Lemire himself. So we're getting a new Joker series and a new The Question series. And if you've been reading Black Label stuff, man, it's just been awesome. It is like the Attitude Era of comics. If you're a wrestling fan, you know what I'm talking about. We're getting kind of like a R-rated comic series, and I think Lemire's the perfect person to enter into this DC Comics Black Label. I think a lot of comic creators are going to want to get their hands dirty and play in this kind of sandbox and take these characters and make them whatever they want to be. And we talked about on the Hot and Cold show the upcoming Harleen series from Stefan. I can't pronounce his last name. Yeah, Stefan S.
I think if I just and Hugh. I mean, one of my favorite artists. Completely admire him. No,
his Hawkman work
not making
was
fun of his name but yeah, I find if I try to say it faster, I feel like I could say it more correctly and people won't notice. Such a But so we're gonna roll into the next pick. This is one of the titles that I was able to read, and I enjoyed it. In fact, it kind of threw me off. I mean, I read the solicit, and the solicit to me read as kind of a Image version of Suicide Squad, where they get 6 criminals to help. But call me naive, call me whatever. At the time, I didn't realize it kind of took place in like medieval times. So they're getting attacked and being bombarded. It's almost like hellfire's coming down on them, and they can't escape it. And they found that the only way to defeat it is to enlist these 6 criminals. And the female on the cover, her character, you're definitely going to want to read it, but not if you are looking for something that's PG or PG-13, because, yeah, she's in prison for a reason, and some guy tried to put his hoo-ha in her mouth, and she let him. But read the book, you'll find out why. But great story. I enjoyed the first issue, so I'm definitely picking this up at least through the first arc, and I'd be interested. Anyone else in the chat that's read this book, or if you're watching this on the replay, put it in the comments. What do you guys think of Reaver #1? Are you going to keep it in your pool list, or are you still looking for this issue? I've heard some places that the comic shop didn't have many copies. I went to Third Eye Comics today, and they had plenty of copies available, but I definitely enjoyed this first issue. What did you think about this, Jack, or what do you have to tell us about this book?
I really like this book. First off, I have to mention that I'm a Justin Jordan fan. I've liked his work for a while. His Image series have been excellent. I've also gotten to talk to him he comes to Heroes Con every year, so I've talked to him and gotten signatures from him over the last several years, several times. He's a real genuine nice guy, and you got to root for people like that. And he's a real creative guy, and I'm glad to see him have another hit on his hands here. I also have to say, of all of the Brian Wood reading reviews, that one might have been my favorite because we got the word hoo-ha.
Hoo-ha.
So yeah. I didn't know how when you started that, I did not know how you were going to navigate that, because I did read this book as well. So
yeah,
I didn't know where you were going to go with that, but
yep.
Yeah, you kept it to the PG, I guess 13 level.
Yeah, we try to keep PG-13, okay? But
But yeah, so I think this book is excellent. I hate to use this term all the time. I think it's heavily adaptable. And again, I think Justin Jordan, he has a really good mix of like these kind of like dark horror stories. They tend to have a lot of sexuality in them, and there's always kind of like this kind of mystery element. And I'm gonna keep this book as one I'm pulling because I think I'm interested to read it, and I'd like to know how everybody else thinks. But yeah, it definitely had some spec buzz. There were some $10 sales on this book this week, and there were some people reporting they weren't able to get it. Now, Brian mentioned that he was able to find it real easy at Third Eye. My suggestion to anybody who isn't able to find it is look for these larger stores. Third Eye is a very large comic brand. They have multiple stores. They tend to be on top of Image Comics releases pretty well. But yeah, your local store, they might, if you're in like Fort Mill, South Carolina, Rock Hill, South Carolina, like myself, they might lump in Image Comics releases with a lot of other indie releases and only order for subscribers plus a few. So, yeah, that may be tough. But I think if you work hard, you can find cover price copies of this. So, just be on the lookout for those. Keep an eye out because I think this is a book that may have some staying power.
Right. And then rolling right on through the list, the next one, which I saw it, didn't know much about it. It wasn't in my pull list, but we have Watchdogs #1.
Yeah, this was a book that I remember looking at in the solicits and thinking it looked kind of interesting. Caught me off guard, and then it sold out at most online large retailers. Midtown for one, and it was sold out real early. People jumped on top of it, and people are always looking for these small press releases. Which one's going to be kind of the hot book? So I don't yet know whether this is reader buzz or if this is truly a more of a low print kind of small press publisher spec play.
Now, who publishes? Is this Titan or who's?
Titan,
Gotcha.
Yeah, Titan Comics. So, yes, I think I'm not really sure. I ordered a copy because I just want to read it. I want to check it out. I want to see what kind of it's about, and but I haven't gotten it in yet. That how that snail mail goes. So, I'm interested to see that. But yeah, there was a lot of buzz on this. And then the funny thing was when I like reached out to some people to ask them about it, it's like, why is this book selling out? What's the deal with this? There were a lot of people that weren't even familiar with the book. So that's the thing that happens a lot of times. We had some talk last night within the community about Knights of the Golden Sun. And I think Knights of the Golden Sun is a kind of a comparable book where when it was released, it sold out instantly. And a lot of us weren't even aware of the book or honestly, even Mad Cave Studio. There's a lot of us that weren't up on Mad Cave at the time. And then the fact that it sold out was the first thing that really alerted us to, well, maybe we need to check this book out. So once you kind of go down that road, you know, you're kind of always paying attention to the market and looking for books that sell out. And I would love to know in the chat, in the community, if anybody read this book and what you think about it. Is there some legs here speculation-wise? How do you feel? Because, again, this is Simpleman's Comics Family, and this show and all the shows on our channel are built on community engagement. So let us know in the chat. Let us know in the comments section if you're watching this on replay. DM me if you're listening to the audio version in the car. Not while you're driving, guys. Don't DM me while you're driving. But, you know, when you get to your destination, hit me in the DMs and let me know what you thought, because I'd love to hear it. Because this is a book that I kind of saw at the last second and was like, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And some of these indie books are weird because that's why the indie books a lot of times get a bad rap. You're starting to see that trend die a little bit because books are starting to retain their value. But a lot of indie books, they take off quick on release day, and then about a month later they kind of spiral back down. I mean, over the years I bought plenty of them, but if they're good reads, it's still worth having in your collection. It's just spec-wise, they kind of have a short shelf life,
Right.
past a few weeks.
And I completely forgot until I just noticed in the chat that this is actually based on a video game. And Titan Comics does a lot of these video game releases. Now, in the past, if this was 2 years ago, I would have sat here and told you guys, ooh, stay away from video game spec. But I don't know that that's the case anymore. We're starting to see more adaptation of video games onto film. The Witcher has been a book that has really kind of like pushed speculation. I think Bloodborne is another one. So there's been, and even like Gears of War, IDW's doing some stuff with that.
We needed that Uncharted movie they keep talking to us about.
Right.
And speaking of which, that Adam Hughes Uncharted variant, if you can find that, that's a $400 or $500 book. I haven't checked what it's gone for lately, but
yeah, it's an absolute ghost though. So it's a matter of just like you said, finding it.
Yeah,
you got to find that book. So yeah, I mean, a couple of years. Brian and I, again, I know we got a lot of new viewers, a lot of new subscribers and watchers. Brian and I have been in CBS now a number of years. I always forget at this point, but like 8 years, something like that. And we've seen these kind of ebbs and flows and trends, and it's funny how things happen. But definitely a couple of years ago, I would have told you stay away from any video game property. It just doesn't pan out. But I just don't know if that's the case. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you to jump on video game properties. I'm just saying you got to pay attention more now than we used to.
Yep. And at least ride the wave, because there will be a wave.
There always is. Yeah.
So it might come up and go down quick, but there will be a wave. And then next on the Reader Buzz section this week was Thor number 15. This has been one of my favorite books since Jason Aaron started his run. He's winding down. This is actually the last book that had Mike Del Mundo interior art, and I kind of feel bad because I started actually liking some of the interior art when this series first started with Mike Del Mundo. The covers were okay, but thank God for the story by Jason Aaron, because sometimes I just cringed at some of the interior art by Mike Del Mundo. But so kudos to him. This was his final issue on it, and I'll let you talk more about the book now, Jack.
Yeah, I'm just laughing at elephant in the room with the Bolo hates team books and video game properties. I guess you're not really that wrong. I won't say hate. I will say I'm skeptical of team appearances and video games. I guess, yeah, same thing. I got watchful eye on them. Truth is, guys, I'm not much of a video gamer, so I'm not the one to for that information. But to pivot to Thor, Thor 15, the big news, obviously, of Jason Aaron. Man, Jason Aaron has really taken this Thor series to new heights. I think because Thor is a big character for some of you new people who are jumping into comics for the first time. And if you're like newer into comics, obviously Thor with Chris Hemsworth is such an iconic role. And you know, you may look at Immortal Hulk, but a lot of people don't realize that like Thor and Hulk for a long time were bad sellers for Marvel. They didn't move books, and even during the periods of like Walt Simonson and where we were getting better Ray Bill, Thor was not a major mover for Marvel. Jason Aaron has been the guy who has probably put the spark in Thor more than any other creator in the history of Marvel. And I might get shot from the OGs who are going to say this
Walt
person
Simonson?
or that person. Yeah, I just dropped Simonson, but I'm still jumping over him for Jason Aaron because Simonson didn't do numbers with Thor, and Jason Aaron is doing numbers. And Simonson's a legend. He's absolutely Hall of Famer and all that, but I think, we might be comparing Jordan to LeBron here, but, and I'm a LeBron guy. That's just it. It is what it is. So, I think that this is a reader book, maybe with a small cachet of the Jane Foster spec, which obviously I gave you my opinion on that. I think, again, great read. I can't wait. I got on this Jason Aaron Thor train late. You can't talk to Brian Wood as often as I talk to Brian Wood and not at least get interested in this Thor run. And I started reading some Jason Aaron Thor stuff. And Jason Aaron's a guy that I've been able to build a rapport with through some of my coverage of Jason Latour and his property Southern Bastards, which was a book that I'll openly say is my favorite comic book, and I can't wait for it to return. And I can't wait for the TV show. But, he's a guy who I think is quite possibly the best writer Marvel has. And I know Donny Cates people will get upset, but I actually think if you've ever read Donny Cates talk about Jason Aaron, I think Donny Cates would agree with me. So Jason Aaron is going to start focusing more on more of his independent properties, but he's also going to write the new Jane Foster Valkyrie book. So, he's going to see that to fruition. And obviously on screen you get the Carnageized variant, which we're going to talk more about those in a little bit. But I think the cover art for Thor 15 is beautiful. I think it's a great wrap-up to the story. I think they did a heck of a job. Brian, I'd love to hear, as somebody who's been like a long-time diehard of Thor, how you felt like the story wrapped up. But I really enjoyed this issue.
Right. So this is going to continue into the King Thor arc.
Right.
So
yeah.
After this, Jason Aaron's teaming back up with Asad Ribic. They're going to do King Thor, which, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but the Zafino 1 in 25 variant for King Thor #1 is freaking awesome. I actually, just to get the variant, ordered 25 copies of King Thor #1 to get the 1 in 25 Zafino. Just because I'm an evangelist of Thor, so I'm going to give some of those issues out to other people and other friends. That way, if you say, hey, don't worry about spending your own money, here's a copy and read it and let me know what you think. But sadly,
Absolutely.
It'll come at the end of his run. But I've enjoyed it. There's been multiple times where I kept it in my pull box since God Butcher. When 2000, I always meant 2011, 2012 when Jason Aaron started. And I kind of fell off a couple times. I wasn't a fan of the Jane Foster and the Thor storyline there.
Yeah.
And then got back into it recently when it came back. But I enjoyed this issue. If you've read this issue in the chat or on the comments, because I'm a big dummy, but at the end, so not to spoil War of the Realms, but Malekith is dead, eaten by dogs, and he ends up in hell, and they got Hela and a bunch of others there, and they're gonna to torture him. Not gonna torture him for life, but they have like his inner child before he was innocent and became the killer and the mean person that he was, and they're gonna have his dogs basically just for eternity chew and eat him up over and over and over again. And Malekith is gonna have to watch, and they have his eyes taped open so he has to watch. But then the last panel, he's in this like green bubble. The kid Malekith is in a green bubble playing with the dogs instead. So I don't know if that's like what's really happening, or I was kind of confused at that. But like I said, I'm just a big dummy. But did enjoy this issue, and I'm looking forward to King Thor. And then I haven't looked ahead at who's coming to write after Jason Aaron, but I'm interested to know that as well.
Yeah, I think they got to come with somebody big. I will say, Donny Cates put a couple teasers out that almost hinted he might go that way. And I know Brian and I talked about that a couple weeks back. I'm not even speculating on that, but I think that that's certainly a possibility that they could go to, because Donny Cates is such a big fan of Thor and of Jason Aaron. He actually posted pictures on his Instagram of him and his fiance at a Thor-themed restaurant in Australia. So I think he could be laying breadcrumbs of teasers that that's where he's kind of headed. So we'll see. But either way, I think the Thor run has been epic. I know Brian's not a huge fan of the Jane Foster Thor run. It wasn't the best read, I will admit. But I will say, one of my daughters, because of that book, was Thor for Halloween one year. She just had to be Thor. To me, again, as a father of two daughters, I just thought that, I think that's cool. It made my daughter be able to walk up. The amount of times that she walked up to somebody's house trick-or-treating and said, I'm Thor, and then some person made some comment like, well, yeah, isn't Thor a boy, though? And she was like, no, Thor is a girl. And the pride that she had in that, as a father, really kind of pumped me up. So I'll always kind of cherish that run. And the first book that she had in her collection, bagged and boarded as her version of a wall book, is that Thor #1, Jane Foster as Thor. So it's just a little personal story there, but that's definitely something that's near and dear to my heart.
Right. And then I don't want to say because that book, when they switched to the Jane Foster Thor, that was like the same time when Marvel was like shoving diversity. When we talk about organic diversity is great, but that was the time period when Marvel was just like switching everyone to like female superheroes, and A-Force came out and they announced it on like The View or Ellen or something like that. So that kind of already is like, man, you can't do this to the God of Thunder. But I stuck with it and I read it, but that was probably not my favorite part of the arc.
No, and I agree with what you're saying. I do think, though, that Jane Foster Thor was a better character than some of the other counterparts that were created during that time period. Some of those other switches and maneuvers that were done, and the amount of like kind of retconning that got done.
So we got Carolina Chris in the chat. Daughter just turned 14, so congratulations to her. And I think he just had a birthday too, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, Carolina Chris. Also, I do see a lot of people in the chat that have their own YouTube channels. As always, make sure you're putting your YouTube channel name in the chat so people can see it and they can sub you guys up and check out your content as well. Tony Fett's in the chat.
You beat me to it. I was about to say that. Yeah, shout out to Tony Fett.
Yes, Tony Fett. I had the privilege of being on his channel last Friday doing an interview talking comic books. Great guy. So make sure you check out Tony Fett's channel as well. He's got a lot of great interviews on there. But again, always want to show love to the comic community. So if you do have a channel, make sure you guys put it in the chat. And then rolling into the Reader Buzz list next, we have Amazing Spider-Man 25 with not quite 25 covers, but close.
Right. Yeah, and it's a big jumping on issue. We've seen this before with Amazing Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man is this, obviously this long-standing series. It's a Marvel, it's their big horse in the race, and they know that it's intimidating for new readers to jump on board. So they try to have these points where readers can jump on and kind of get started with a story. So that's why usually when this happens, we get an issue like this, $7.99 cover price, double issue, 9 million covers. Makes it very hard. I think there's no speculation here. Having said that, I think the point of it is, again, for new readers jumping on, for them to be able to kind of pick their favorite cover. I think Marvel wants covers that are going to attract different audiences. Having said that, man, it makes it really tough on a retailer. I feel for the retailers out there who had their orders in for 25 and try to figure out how to play this game and which covers to get. And I've already seen retailers offering some of these covers at regular price for $3.99. And I think it may just be because sales didn't do maybe what they had hoped. But I'm going to give you a little bolo. Keep an eye out for the upcoming Amazing Spider-Man issues. Usually when they do these jumping on points, it's because they want to bring readers in because they're about to do something. So we saw this happen around the Red Goblin time. The next few issues, pay attention to those solicits. Pay attention to the speculation sites and whoever's the talking heads are out there talking about it. Because I have a feeling something could be coming in the way of Amazing Spider-Man. Whether it's a return of a character, I guess like Red Goblin, or a new character. They've also been slow playing this, I think his name is Kindred, this villain character that they've kind of teased and had show up and pulled away. And they put too much effort into this character for him not to be important. So I think at some point we're going to see that and see how that plays out. So keep an eye on that. We talk about following the money. Marvel put a lot of effort and a lot of money into this issue, and whether or not this specific issue plays out for speculators, it's definitely a hint of what's to come from Amazing Spider-Man and Marvel. So something I would definitely keep an eye out for.
Right. I didn't read this, but one issue I did read was the Miles Morales Spider-Man number 8 that didn't make the reader buzz. It was kind of late, but that was a great issue. Kind of had like a Maze Runner feel type to it, where he's been kidnapped and they have some mission that they want him to do, but they start putting him through trials, and if he doesn't comply with it, first they're going to hurt him, and then they're going to go after his friends and family. But great issue. I enjoyed it, and
I've been liking that whole Miles Morales series. I picked that Miles Morales series several times on the Wednesday Warriors. I've also enjoyed Miles Morales' role in the Champions series and what he was doing in there. I gotta say, man, Miles Morales, there's so much spec potential with that character. There's so much they can do with that character. And I love the way Marvel is kind of working on that character. I had a lot of people bring that up. That it looks like there's a first appearance in the Miles Morales issue. There wasn't a lot of pre-release buzz. Most of the buzz was around kind of the apps, spec apps, putting the rumor of first appearance, which again we couldn't confirm at the time of the list coming out, so we're not going to do that. I'm aware that even though we advocate to you guys, don't just take this list and buy what's on the list. Make your own decisions and make your own speculation. Have conversations amongst yourself. Jump up in the Facebook communities. Do your thing, and have conversations before you make those decisions. But at the same point, I know that some people are going to take that list and run with it, and I don't want to steer somebody in the wrong direction. But I agree with what Brian said. That Miles Morales series has been a great read.
Right, especially if in the MCU, if they keep Donald Glover as Aaron Davis, Miles' uncle, I see a lot of potential with that. And what if he comes back and he's not the Prowler? What if he's the Iron Spider?
Oh, yeah, there's so much they could do with that. But I'd love to see him as the Prowler and part of maybe the Sinister Six or something like that. I think there's so much potential. Maybe you have a Miles and Tom Holland Spider-Man team up. Yeah. I think anything's possible, but I just think there's so much potential there. Yeah, Marvel has to see the money.
Yeah, and they're starting to go that way with just Mysterio. If you saw Far From Home, or just the trailer, they finally mentioned multiple universes. So
yeah, so it's in play now. And again, that means Spider-Gwen's in play. I guess Spider-Ham's in play, but I wouldn't take that real serious.
It was kind of in play from the first one when Aaron Davis Donald Glover was in there, but
but it just wasn't
confirmed, or you didn't
confirmed. Yeah, you felt like it was going to happen, but you just obviously Aaron Davis even says something about his nephew, so we knew that there was a possibility, and then I think there was even some Easter egg in an early Daredevil episode. Some poster on a wall, I think, of Aaron Davis or something like that. So, I think that they've been dropping those hints. And I think that, again, Marvel can't turn away from that money. There's no way.
Yeah. And the interior art in Spider-Man, Miles Morales, I actually really enjoy that as well.
Yeah, slept-on series for sure.
So, keeping in the Spidey universe, we're going to go into Venom number 16. This seemed to kind of, I won't say let people down, but I think people were expecting something bigger from this book than what they got.
Guys, you guys got to realize, I think everybody was waiting for this, major first appearance. Everybody's waiting for Dylan to Venom up. But here's the thing, Donnie's been gone during War of Realms. Cullen Bunn has been writing Venom. So essentially, this starts the Absolute Carnage story really in full effect, with Donnie jumping back in and the lead up to it. he's, again, the way solicitations work, they're going to slow play this. You're not going to see it coming. It's going to hit you out of left field. And it's coming, guys. It's coming. But this is the beginning of telling that story. I have to say, I really love this cover, even for speculation, because if you've watched me on the show, man, I back issue BOLO'd Venom number 7 and Venom number 9. I'm a big believer that they didn't create Eddie Brock's son for nothing. That I think Donnie has huge. I keep saying Donnie like we're like best buddies and best friends, but
We're talking about Donnie from New Kids on the Block, though. We're talking about Donnie Cates.
Right, Donnie Cates. But yeah, so Donnie Cates, you know, I don't think that this has been his baby, his story that he's been telling since this story began. I think you're going to get the payoff you want. It's going to be hard for you to predict from a pre-order level what book to go heavy on, which is, again, if you've been watching this show, I've been an advocate of get on board this series altogether. But I love this cover. I think this is a cover. If Dylan becomes as big as we all think he's going to be, tell me that cover isn't going to be an iconic cover of the two of them sitting together, you know, having a father-son moment. Then you get to look at the ice cream and you see kind of the venomized ice cream look. I just think that this is an important issue and an important cover, and one that will stick around, but it didn't have that first appearance buzz that a lot of people would hope for. I would also say, I don't know if he still has them in stock, but shout out to our sponsor, Nick from Slabbed Heroes. He had, for cover price, those PX exclusive San Diego Comic-Con edition of this book. And a lot of people were charging $9.99 for that cover, and he had it for $3.99. So I'm not sure 100% if it's still in stock. It was in stock earlier today, but check out slabbedheroes.com and see, because I think that's a good speculation play, is that black and white cover.
Right. I thought it was the Rick Grimes crossover issue, having ice cream, but...
Yeah, you do get like a Rick and Carl feel there.
But so then, rolling right along, the next one on the Reader Buzz was... This was supposed to be a DC book at one point, right? Vertigo
right.
DC, and it's
yeah,
now
this was
Ahoy Comics is what publishes, and this is Second Coming #1.
Right. So obviously, you see right on the cover, when they say Second Coming, they're talking about what you think they're talking about, the Second Coming of Jesus Christ. And this book was supposed to be released by DC. DC's owned by Time Warner, Warner Media. Big, giant, publicly traded company. And when you do that, you're kind of at the behest of shareholders and a whole lot of corporate execs. And a company like DC Comics, which is a small imprint within this larger multimedia brand, they tend to succumb to outside pressures. And a lot of outside pressures within media come from people who aren't a part of the comics community or aren't reading stories. These kind of biblical takes, it's pretty common in comics. Kind of, there's nothing off limits in comics. That's why I don't like when people get worked up over like political satires, like the Trump book or the AOC book. Like, I don't really care what side of the aisle you sit on.
Or
but
that
obviously,
Raphael Albuquerque Killing Joke homage.
Right, yeah, and I mean, because like especially like politics and religion, those are like the two most you don't talk about topics. But in comics, we don't have that. We talk about everything, and you know, I hate to get all like First Amendment on it, but you know, that whole amendment was created because largely people would complain about kings and a lot of it was done through satire. A lot of it was done through the earliest forms of comic books and cartoons and things like that. So I tend to laugh when people get bent out of shape about this stuff. Now, at the same point, I've said on this show, I'm a good Christian boy. So I get people's, frustrations with this, but...
You're like the third belt loop on the Bible Belt, so...
You know, yeah. I'm down here in South Carolina, so this, even the opinion I just shared on this book probably wouldn't mean too much favor around here. But, you know, I think this story sounded interesting. You know, Jesus coming down to earth and coming to this world where there's superheroes and supervillains. And he's like, what is going on? And he's got to team up with a superhero. And that's kind of what I want to read. So I haven't read it yet. I'm going to read it. It's something I think it's going to be, could be funny, could be interesting. I think there's extra credence in this book with the fact that it was a DC Comics book. Because you got to think about the quality that DC Comics is going to mess with. Not to slight Ahoy or anything bad about Ahoy. I haven't read a lot of their books. I'm not super familiar with them. But I don't want to talk negatively about somebody I'm not familiar with. But I say shout out to them for being opportunistic and jumping on a book that had a lot of buzz, whether it was positive or negative. And we just saw Scout Comics release the comic a couple weeks ago, Crucified, which was on the BOLO list and got a lot of attention and was a religious story. To bring back up Knights of the Golden Sun is another story that's kind of got heavy biblical themes. There is a market for these kind of books, and yeah, this comes at it more from a humor perspective than kind of a heartwarming sort of perspective. But at the same point, I think that again, there's a market for everything, and there's a comic book for everybody, which is why, like my friends, my college buddies, and all that, when they laugh at the whole "oh, you're into comic books" thing, it's always like, man, everybody could be into comic books. There's a book for everybody. Yep. So this is one of those books that's going to test the waters and be controversial, but we all know controversy sells at times. So I don't know what the print run of this one is, but I would imagine it's not as huge as it would be if it was a DC Comics Vertigo release.
No. I would bet probably 12,000, maybe less.
Yeah, probably less.
But Perry Comics, he's in the chat. He said it was a great story, and it's a blessing they can make books like this. So you make book whatever type of book you want. If it's the buying power, if it's against what you believe, don't buy it. Move on.
Right? But, yeah, you vote with your wallet. You know.
Yeah. So, and then last for the reader buzz this week, we had Strange Lands #1. Now this goes into your heavy imprint that you're big on, right, Jack?
Yeah, I really like H1 from Humanoids. Humanoids is a imprint that's been around for a long time. Well, they're a publisher that's been around for a long time, and they're based out of France. And they've been very heavy in the comics market in Europe. And they really wanted to pop their company off in America more. So they've got this H1 imprint. They've got John Cassidy and Mark Waid, who are two comics heavyweights, kind of spearheading this project. And I think that these stories that they're telling are kind of made for movies and TV adaptation. They're set in very real world situations with obviously fantastical kind of superhero elements added in. And we've talked about how all of these streaming services are at war for properties, and they're looking for things and stories to tell. And I think that H1 is one of those brands that's primed for a pickup. And at the same point, they're a small brand, so that I don't think that the print is going to be real huge on these. And if I was to make a comparison for this story, Strangelands, I would say that it's kind of a cloak and dagger story of like two super people, I guess, who are kind of tied together somehow, but don't know each other and don't know why this is, and they've got to kind of figure out this dynamic out. And obviously, I haven't fully gotten into this story yet, so I don't know. Somebody can make the jab and say, well, it's a ripoff of Cloak and Dagger, but I think that some of the similarities are there, but that's already been a proven entity that's worked, but it has never kind of worked on a large scale. We've had the Freeform TV show, which was a good TV show. I think it's still on, but it hasn't gotten that mass media appeal. And I think that taking these stories into modern times, using a diverse character base, will allow H1 to be able to eventually option a lot of these properties for American television and movies. And to bring it back, when I talked about Ignition as a long-term play, there was a lot of negative buzz about some of the comments Mark Waid made that people viewed as, I guess, overly liberal or whatever. But it's important to note that if we're just taking politics out of it and we're just looking at the money, Hollywood's liberal. So liberal stories are going to sell and they're going to make money. If that's against your political beliefs, well, then by all means, if you don't want to spend the money on it, I'm not hating on you for it. I try to keep politics way the heck out of my comics, and I honestly just want to make money. I'm a speculator, so I see speculation value in H1 releases. I think that they're going to have a good chance. And it's important to note, this book sold out at most large retailers. Now, they may have ordered less because Ignition maybe underperformed what they had hoped, but we had talked about some of the negative buzz from the right-wing media for Ignition, and I think Strangelands went more under the radar. So because of that, the book wasn't heavily ordered, and it sold out. So that's something to keep an eye on.
We're talking in the chat about the fringe show in comic books.
Yes.
But they said there was a comic. I asked if Loot Crate did a variant for it, because for a while there it seemed like Loot Crate was doing variants for a lot of those type shows, like Orphan Black and a bunch of those. I won't say sci-fi, but those type shows. So I was just curious. But
Loot Crate kind of fell off hard.
yeah,
I think they got kind of beat out once Funko started releasing their own themed boxes.
yeah, and it was weird because Funko did the release boxes through not Amazon, but through their own thing. And then they kind of pulled it back, and they've basically sold their subscriptions off to like Amazon, Hot Topic, and I forgot who has the DC one now. But so that's gonna wrap up the reader buzz. But before we get into the variant buzz, there is a huge comic book channel on YouTube that had kind of a surprise announcement. It went like Walking Dead 193 on everyone this week, right, Jack?
Yeah.
I mean, Jack.
Yeah.
I just gave it away.
Spoilers. Yeah, but yeah, so we want to take a minute and kind of say shout out to Jim from Jim's Comics. You know, within the YouTube community, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second, but within the YouTube community, there tends to be some competition, some negativity, and we at Simpleman's Comics, we experience this sometimes. But, there's also a part of this community that is so amazing and where everybody kind of shares knowledge and puts things out. And I think a lot of times there's a perception that we as New Comic Book Day, that's our niche for Brian and I, that we are, say, in competition with people like Bueller or Jim from Jim's Comics. But that's really not the case, man. Brian and I really appreciate those guys. We appreciate what they do. We have to give credit where credit's due. And honestly, Jim has built, a larger following than us. He has a larger subscriber base than us. So Jim has done his thing, and he's been an important member of the comic community. But another thing that I've talked about is chasing your dreams. I'm in the process of trying to get out of my regular job and chase my comic dream full time, and that's what I want to do. And Jim is a guy who is shutting his YouTube channel down because he wants to chase his dream of writing a comic book. And he's got a script, and he's going to draw it, and he's going to work on it. And, to do that kind of takes your total focus. And I got to applaud him as a guy who has kind of built such a reputation for himself within the speculation community to say, you know what, I'm going to take a step off. He said, it's probably not forever, 6 months to a year, but he's going to work on his comic. And, from Brian and I, man, we just wanted to really say on our channel, and shout out to Jim and shout out to him for making that decision. Thank you for all of the content you've put out. So many of our viewers and followers are fans of his as well. I also think, again, it's important to reach across the aisle and I hate to use a political term, but reach out to those other channels and let them know, man, we're watchers and followers as well. We appreciate it, and we respect game wherever it comes from. Also, I want to throw this out there. I haven't talked to Brian about this, so I'm just going to throw it out there. Jim, when you write that book and you're ready to come talk about that book, come talk about it with us on the Indie Spotlight Series show. We'd love to have you, and we'd love to help you promote your book, man, because you're one of us. You're coming from where we're at, and much respect to you for having kind of the balls. I'm sorry to use that term, but to make the hoo-has to make this choice and to put yourself out there publicly and say, this is what I'm doing, because Lord knows every time you do something like that, you're opening yourself up for, for hate and negativity. So from, Brian and myself and Simpleman's Comics channel and Simpleman's Comics family, we say, man, thank you for your service to the comic community on YouTube, and good luck, man, with what you're doing, and we're here to support you.
Right. And I second what Jack said. Huge pillar to the YouTube comic community. We always say YouTube, we have a community within the channel, but YouTube itself has a great comic book community. That's why we're always trying to talk about other channels, let people be aware of other channels. JB from Discovery Bay does a huge service with his daily channel lineup, lets you know what's coming on YouTube. So if you're not checking out Discovery Bay, make sure you check him out as well. But Jim Comics, he was a staple in the YouTube community. I kind of hope as he finds time, he kind of mentioned it, that he will come back and give maybe some YouTube videos on the status of the comic. I'd like to see if he has the time or the ability to document that journey. Make the content out of your journey of making your comic book, because that I think would be something fantastic for everyone to see. I know I'll watch it.
I would watch it for sure. I would love to. I would love to follow that journey.
Yeah.
And also, it's important to note, I think he's still going to be active on Instagram. So if you're a follower of his on Instagram, he will still drop some spec nuggets on Instagram. Yeah. And I know he works with on the Key Collector app and doing some speculation for the Key Collector app. I think that's going to continue as well. Yeah. But yeah, and who knows? Maybe we can get Jim to do a little segment on the Hot Cold show at some point right here on the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel. So you never know.
Yeah. So kudos to Jim. Wish you the best of luck. And taking that risk, live the dream. Because we saw it. Nick from our sponsor Slabbed Heroes, he quit his job working at a bank like 6 months ago and made his business full time. So admire people that definitely admire people that do that. So we just wanted to make sure that we addressed that and got the word out, because he will be missed. And we are going to go now back onto the BOLO list, and this time we are going into the variant buzz section, which had some good books this week, not compared to last week. But we're going to talk the first one on your list is Carnageized variants. Cat variant, Carnageized. But I've even said on Weekly Picks, I think I said on Wednesday Warriors, just not a fan of that title. Not a fan of that series. It's like, I like it. Black Cat is a supporting character, not a main protagonist.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've even thrown even more hate on that one on this channel before and said, this series was created for variant covers. This was created for artists to make pinup variant covers and to sell to the speculation community. You got to see that coming, and you got to move past that. You're not going to trick me into that. Having said that, that Mark Brooks cover is fantastic. I mean, I'm a big Mark Brooks fan, and he's almost slept on. He's one of those artists, he's like Alex Ross, where he's so consistent that people almost overlook him. And he did great work here. This almost wasn't the best week for Carnageized variants, but because we had a light variant week and I had so many people asking me, are you going to get the Venom 16 Carnageized variant? There were a lot of people looking at that Mike Del Mundo Thor Carnageized variant that I thought it was important that we throw it on the list because, a lot of times these kind of series of variants get a bad rap from speculators. And look, I'll be the first one to tell you there's not a lot of money in it for us on these things. There's always one or two that pop off. We saw Spider-Gwen 1 do pretty well a couple weeks ago. But, the reality of the situation is that this isn't the best spec play. Anytime they do these, LCSs see them a mile away and they order pretty heavy on them. Having said that, not everything's about us. Not everything's about speculation, and a lot of us, and even if we're speculators, we're also collectors and we're fans. And a lot of these books are just great PC books. If you're a guy like Brian who's a Thor fan, and maybe you also like Carnage, so that book appeals to you. I wish I could remember who said it. So I'm sorry, whoever you are who said this to me. I really don't like the Venom book. I didn't think it was that good looking, but I had somebody messaging me I was having a conversation with, and they said, oh man, Carnage and Venom and the same person, that's awesome. And it's like, well, okay, see, that's the point, is that, different people view things different ways. And people who are fans of these characters tend to like the books that their characters represent. So I think whether it's the Venom variant, we're talking Venom variants, whether we're talking these Carnage variants, or these upcoming like Immortal variants where we're going to get the wraparound covers similar to the Immortal Hulk 16 variant, and we're going to get them for all kinds of characters, all the way to like Moon Knight. I think that while these books end up becoming cover price books, they're still going to find their way into PCs, and there's still value in their form. It's really just a great play for retailers. And again, guys, be careful if you're going to retail stores and people are trying to charge you $10-12 on release day. These should be cover price. These should be cover price books. So demand better, and if you can't find that at your LCS, look elsewhere because they're out there.
Right. So the next book for the Variant Buzz section is Levant Leviathan. This is the Jason Fabak B cover. And I read the book. I didn't see too much coming out of the book. I think this was just purely on Fabak's art, right? I mean,
right. This issue 2 was almost, issue 1 was underwhelming. Like it didn't lead where we want it to lead yet. If you're not reading the story, like I don't want to give too much away, and it's kind of hard to give things away because it's a slow played story, which is Bendis' style. But issue number 2, I thought maybe we'd get a little more punch, and we didn't. It's kind of still more of a kind of bridge issue. So yeah, this sold out on Fabak's art. Now I like Jason Fabak. I think he's a good artist. Another guy who puts out like consistently good work. But this surprised me. I certainly like this cover, but I would tend to like the I'm gonna butcher his last name, but the Quintana Batman variant, the Dan Q Batman variant,
Dan Quintana or Quintana.
Yeah, Quintana. I think that's maybe a better cover. I liked his Batman variant last month. I liked his Batman variant this month. But for whatever reason, man, the market jumped on this book. Part of it is the Red Hood. Obviously, people love the Red Hood. But the market jumped all over this book. This book was selling out everywhere. We haven't seen secondary market spikes yet, but it's a book that dried up real quick. And if you're like me, I'm putting together Event Leviathan sets of both cover A and cover B. This one caught me off guard a little bit. I did not see this coming. So it's one of those things. This can happen with some of these variants where, you know, the market kind of dictates which ones they like and which ones they don't, and it doesn't always match up with your eye. And that old saying of the art is in the eye of the beholder, it rings true with these DC cover B variants because you just never know which ones are going to really take hold in the hobby. And a lot of it also depends on the order quantities put in by retailers.
Right. Then next on the list, you had the J. Scott Campbell Virgin variant, right, for the Black Cat number 2?
Right. So this is, I believe, a 1 in 100 or 1 in 200. It's the cover A, the Virgin. There's a lot of people chasing these Virgin versions of cover A that you're getting from J. Scott Campbell with this series. And again, this is where Marvel's putting that effort in. I'm sure it cost them a fortune to pay J. Scott Campbell to do the regular covers. And these Virgin versions, obviously, that's what collectors and speculators chase. And we saw this with X-Men Black with the different one-shots of the different villains. But if you look at the sales of this book, while it's demand and it's selling, they're not necessarily hitting ratio. They're getting close, and some are going slightly above, but it's not really indicative of what a J. Scott Campbell Virgin variant does.
I take the incentive out of it and just looking at the art. I actually thought the Terry Dodson cover was a lot better than this one, but I didn't buy it because I didn't want to pay the money for it because as much as I love the art, I don't really care for the book, so I passed.
Well, and no disrespect to J. Scott Campbell, but I think Terry Dodson's covers can compete with J. Scott Campbell any day.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times they're better. And that's where I say, like, art is in the eye of the beholder, but it's also in the eye of the market because the market tends to follow certain people. So, like, if I look in the chat, Ken Tanker says, I hope there is a J. Scott Campbell burnout. And we've seen it's possible because we've seen that before. Adam Hughes is somebody who at one point was hot as fire. Guys, he's releasing a DC comic almost every week and nobody's buying it. Nobody's buying it.
He had a DC and a Marvel this week.
Right, and just nobody's buying it.
Yeah.
There's just no demand for his stuff right now.
I bought the Stephanie Hans Invisible instead of the Hughes.
Right.
And he
so,
also no, that's DC, Lois Lane. But
yeah, and there's more and more talk of him doing interiors for certain books. So, like, he's putting himself out there.
Yeah.
But, you know, the market is just kind of moved beyond him at this point.
Yeah, and it was hot because he wasn't doing as many covers, I believe, at the time. And then his Betty and Veronica series came out, and then it just seemed like he started doing more and more and more covers. And the Superman covers, there's not as much to him anymore. I don't know.
Well, and let's be honest, man. I've talked about this before. I'm a father of daughters. I don't get into these big boobed women comics. You know, this low hanging fruit of, like, let's take these busty women, scantily clad, and we'll get a J. Scott Campbell, we'll get a Adam Hughes, and we'll, you know, have her with her butt out, turned around backwards, trying to attract middle-aged men to overpay for comic books. Those days are starting to pass, guys. There's more and more inclusion within this hobby. You know, we see this even just within the Simpleman's Comics family. You we've got a few of our female followers or some of our most active members and some of the most important members of our community. So it becomes one of those things where, the market is just changing. And some of these cover artists who leaned on these heavily sexualized covers are starting to find difficulty within the community. And I'm not saying there's not a place for those covers. There is. But as an artist, you need to be able to be diverse. So like Brian mentioned Superman. That's the thing is once you take Adam Hughes off of a busty female and he does a cover of Superman, suddenly it loses everything. It's gone. And that's, again, why I like Mark Brooks, because Mark Brooks, David Finch, Clayton Crane, these are artists who are able to literally draw any character, have a signature style, and deliver quality artwork time in and time out.
Right. And then moving on to the next one, this was the Marvel Tales Captain America #1, the Jim Bartel Virgin variant. And Midtown again was selling this for well above ratio.
And this seems to be the first one, would you say, that bricked? That just really didn't pop in the market. I think people are over this. We talked about this, I think, for like 6 different releases. Brian and I almost had the same conversation where we've broke down, like, it costs retailers $200 because you got to pay $4 half cover price to buy 50 copies to get 1 copy of this Virgin variant. And while Jem Bartel's art is outstanding and it just oftentimes jaw-dropping, you're overpaying as a retailer to get these. We've had retailers in the chat say, I can't move these Marvel Tales reprints at $8. I'm selling 1, 2, 3 copies. So to ask a retailer to grab 50 to get one of these is incredible. And yeah, Midtown, they're taxing on it. Wait till Midtown has a $1 sale and you're going to see a ton of these trade dress $7.99 covers on dollar sales. Because, and Brian and I have talked about this, they didn't even reprint the good stories in these things. Yeah. So I think they've moved, these covers have been kind of started to be passed in the market. No disrespect to Jem Bartel, because I think she's an absolute up-and-comer in the industry. She's got that deal with Adidas. She's dropping exclusive Adidas Marvel shoes. We saw a Captain Marvel release and a Thanos release. Thanos, I always say Thanos, but, and they were both big in the sneaker market. If you know me, I come from sneakers. That's my day job. And those releases were very, very, very important.
Right. And then rolling on to the last one in the variant list this week was Wolverine versus Blade, and this was the 1 in 50 Delato, right?
Right. This is the big winner of the variant books, and this is where you get a situation where Delato is a huge cover artist, major importance in the hobby. I've heard some negatives. Some people say they don't like this cover, and that's fine. And I don't know that I love this cover, but I'm gonna go ahead and sell it. Why I think that the reason why this book is selling for $100, which is double ratio. Wolverine and Blade was not a heavily ordered series. All the covers were impressive, but it wasn't a heavily ordered series. And this is, again, a 1 in 50. So stores were paying $100 to get to the 1 in 50. There was not a 1 in 25 variant. So most of the time when you're getting a 1 in 50, you're also getting 2 1 in 25s. So you're looking at it as a retail store. You're paying half of cover price. Was cover price $4 or $5 on this book?
I believe it's $4.
Okay, so you're looking at $2 a book. So to order 50, you were in it for $100. Problem is, you don't have your 2 1 in 25s to hopefully make half of that back. So it puts extra pressure on that. So a lot of retailers avoided ordering this book that heavily. There's only one store that made a store variant, so they got 60 copies, which, that can tank it. We've got Andy in the chat saying $4.99, so it's even more. It's $2.50 per book the average retailer was paying. And then there has not been a Blade. I was thinking Vlad Guerrero, but there hasn't been a Blade variant on the market, an incentive for some time. So to have a Blade variant done by such an iconic and important artist, not just in the comics industry, but especially on the secondary market, there are so many Delado completionists out there who are trying to put together collections of every Delado cover known to mankind. So, that's one of those books where I think when I saw that book, I posted the BOLO on my Instagram when Midtown was late putting this book up. They did not put it up with the rest of their books. I think they had to kind of see what they had. And like they've been doing, Brian talked about this a couple weeks ago, Midtown now started tax over ratio on certain books, drives me nuts. But they were charging like $63.50 marked down from $75, which is ridiculous. But again, still a good buy. You're not making a huge margin on it.
So actually, they're saying it was a $5.99 book.
$5.99 books. So that just makes my point even more though, because you're looking at $3 now. So you're to order this, you're into it for $150. Now imagine if you sell this variant for $100, you still have $50 to recover. Now you've got 50 copies of the book, so you're only into the book for $1 a book. But I don't know what the reader buzz demand for this book is truly going to be. So this was a tough spec play for a lot of stores. The only stores who are going to take that risk, guys, are big stores who can afford that risk. Again, the CBSI affiliate, a guy we talk to a lot of times, Russ Bright of Mill Geek Comics, he really has given us a lot of insight on what the average kind of small retail store goes through and kind of like their ordering process. And this is the type of thing where Russ isn't going to take that financial risk just to get an incentive. So probably the better play was buying the book off Midtown for $63 whatever and taking that risk there than it would have been to even try to play the diamond game and order copies.
Right. And this was my pick. This is my pick of the week. I had it for, I think, spec or incentive for Wednesday Warriors. I forget which one. But I didn't get it because I didn't spend the money on it and was late on it. I actually really like the cover A, the Dave Wilkins cover.
Me too.
Huge Dave Wilkins fan. I forget. I know there's a store variant out there for a version of that going on. But Dave Wilkins, that regular cover, great cover. And I know Sean Leggett, another one in CBSI. He's big on huge Dave Wilkins fan as well. So if you can't get the incentive Delado, pick up that regular cover because it's gorgeous as well. And then I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but Blade and Wolverine's got to make for a great story.
Right. I would imagine so. And again, on the character of Blade, I'm real bullish. I think Blade is gonna, with all this horror stuff popping off, it's only a matter of time before Marvel does something with Blade. And I know a lot of people like to reference the old Wesley Snipes movies, and again, they were fun and entertaining, but we're in a whole new ball game of the MCU, and I think they're gonna recast and reimagine the character, and I'm all for it. So I think that with the limited number of Blade books that are truly important in the secondary market, I think this book is going to have some staying power, guys. And I'll tell you, full transparency, I bought one. I wasn't going to go heavy and buy multiple copies or anything like that. That's an expensive buy-in, but I bought one. Yeah, I'll see what happens. And either way, I love my Italian artist, so I'm all about Gabriel Delato.
Right. So that wraps up the variant buzz. So we've gone through the first appearances, reader buzz, and variant buzz. Now we have Jack's long-term play this week. And coming in for your long-term play, we have Go Power Rangers number 21.
Right, so if you guys have been watching, if you're long-time followers of the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel, you know that we have done 2 interviews with Arun Singh. Both interviews, we talked about this upcoming story, Necessary Evil. And if you have watched the BOLO show, you know I highlighted Power Rangers number 40. This is the second story, the second book in this Necessary Evil story. And why this is important is we saw this with the last important story, Shattered Grid, and in Necessary Evil is the follow-up to Shattered Grid. Go Power Rangers, which tends to have kind of a lighter art style, gets looked at as almost like a kid's book in comparison to the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers main book. But in fact, it is just, it tells a different segment of the story, a different area of the story. So in the past, it got kind of underordered and slept on. And guess what, guys? That happened again with this one. Our retailers in the field let us know yesterday this book is now completely sold out at Diamond. So whatever copies are in retailers' hands, that is all you are going to see. And guess who let us know way back when that was going to happen. Arun Singh. He put out what he calls the BOLO Audible. And I'll tell you, Arun, you can go ahead and take the BOLO term anytime you want to, my man, because every time he puts that BOLO out, he is right. And he let us know, man, people are under-ordering this book. And another reason why this is important is because the writer of the series, Ryan Parrott, is now the writer of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and he is writing the Necessary Evil story. The previous writer was Dennis Hopeless, who is now goes by his actual name, Dennis Hallam, who he kind of like kickstarted this whole Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Lord Draken craze. And here we get the follow-up to issue 40, where we had the first appearance. Issue 40 gave us that first appearance of the Omega Rangers. And here we kind of get their origin story. And we get kind of like a surprise cameo from a new Ranger, as well as, again, continuing this story in a lower printed issue. And we saw this with Shattered Grid. Power Ranger collectors, they want the whole series. They want the whole story. And to do that, what they're going to end up doing is they're going to want both of these kind of releases, Go-Go Power Rangers and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And you can bank on Go-Go Power Rangers always having the smaller print run. Now here we get a chance to look at some of the variants, and you see kind of the unique variants. Go-Go Power Rangers likes to use variant themes. So their incentives are usually homages. In the past, they've been homages to like 80s movies and 90s movies. Here we get the No Doubt Tragic Kingdom homage, which I've had a conversation with a couple people. It's the first CD I ever bought. Was back in the day. I actually, going through pictures for my father's funeral, I found myself an old No Doubt t-shirt that I completely forgot I even owned and was a little embarrassed I was actually rocking to middle school. But so there's been some popularity with that Rita Repulsa cover that you can see on the far right of your screen. You're also getting these yearbook picture variants that we're seeing there. So you get kind of the one, I think it's Jason there. You get the yearbook picture. Go-Go Power Rangers 21, again, sold out at retail at Diamond. Retailers can out order more. We already know, if you at your LCS, how many of you out there are really going to your LCS and seeing a stack of Power Rangers books. It's not out there. You may have seen a little bit of an increased order for Power Rangers 40 because there was so much buzz on that issue. But you're not going to see it. You're not going to see it going into this Go-Go Power Ranger series, but maybe this issue will bring some light to that. So while it hasn't yet secondary market popped off, if you go and look at sales of Power Rangers 40, you're starting to see increasing number of sales. You're starting to see an increasing number of the price creeping up. You had that boom when it first came out, and then it dropped off as the supply increased, as people got their copies in the mail, put them up on eBay, and now you're starting to see the dry up and the move. Also, Power Rangers is in the news for their San Diego Comic-Con variant because they're releasing a very special San Diego Comic-Con variant for that. Brian and I actually knew about this in advance, but it was something that, we're not allowed to share, and we want to always respect our industry contacts and the things that they bless us with. But San Diego Comic-Con, if you guys are there, check out the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 40 variant with that Goni Montez cover that features the Orange Ranger. This is done for Make-A-Wish. There is a child fighting cancer, and he kind of created this character, this Orange Ranger character. And the people at Boom Studios and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, they wanted to create a book and actually make this character reality, and they're going to be selling this book at San Diego Comic-Con, and the money goes to benefit the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And it's just an amazing thing that Boom is doing. And us at CBSI and Simpleman's Comics, we love those initiatives. That's why, again, we're donating money from every variant release that we do to the St. Jude's Children's Hospital because we want to be active in that community. I think it's important. As speculators, we take from the hobby to also be giving back. And so I think that the people at Boom, they're aware of where their audience is, and they're receptive to the people that are so invested in the Power Rangers. And it was cool to see them do this for this young kid, man. And our heart goes out to him and his family for everything they go through. Obviously, both Brian and my family have been affected by cancer and disease and things like that. So just really kind of a cool story. doesn't necessarily have to do with Go-Go Power Rangers 21, but there is mainstream, I hate to make it about speculation, but there's a lot of mainstream media news going out right now about that Make-A-Wish book, and those are the kind of things that are going to draw attention to this Necessary Evil storyline and what's going on, and the reason why we picked this as a spec. And finally, I always talk about follow the money, and when we've got a guy who's the VP of marketing who is willing to put his reputation and his own in the I'm going to let the market prove me wrong. It's going to dry up and be impossible to find, and that's what always works with properties like this is when Power Rangers fans are trying to put that run together and they can't get number 21. That's when that price is going to jump. And we've seen random issues in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers be $25, $30, just because the supply of that issue has dried up.
So there you have it. That's Jack's long-term play. Again, if you want to see more about this book or Arun talking about it, we do have the interview with Arun on the channel. It's under the Indie Spotlight series. Definitely check that out. And like he said, they do have the Make-A-Wish. So if you're at San Diego Comic-Con, make sure you look for that Make-A-Wish exclusive variant. But that concludes the BOLO list for tonight. First appearances, reader buzz, variant buzz, and the long-term play of Go-Go Power Rangers. If you were able to get that incentive, no doubt, homage variant, let us know in the chat. Let us know in the comments. It's a gorgeous cover. My LCS didn't have hardly any of them, like any of the covers. I think they had a couple of the regular ones. But so yeah, let us know. Let us know what you think of that book. And with that being said, Jack, do you have anything else before we go tonight?
I just want to reiterate again, guys, next week we'll be here, and we're probably going to be talking about Sarah and the Royal Stars, and we have that CBSI variant available, comicbookinvest.com. Hit that variant tab, check that out. Still some copies left, but it's going, so make sure that you guys jump on that. We always want to let Simpleman's Comics family know first. And again, guys, thank you for bringing us to 5,000 subs, man. This was something a couple thousand ago that we were talking about, we wanted to do. And we were like, maybe by the end of the year. Here it is, July, and we're here, and we so appreciate it. And I want to put out another plug, because we've got a goal that Brian and I have been working on for a year and a half. We want to get this Comic Book Invest, at Comic Book Invest CBSI, the Instagram account that Brian and I work on together. We want to get that to 10,000 subscribers. Not because it's like a goal for clout for us or anything else, but if you're aware of how Instagram works, once we get to 10,000 subscribers, we can direct link things. And that is very important, because then instead of telling you, hey, go to this video or go to Brian's page or Brian's channel, we can put the video up directly in our story, and you can just click it if you want to see it. Also, you can go to any article, and this is something that's really going to help out our writers, help out our community. So if you're not following Comic Book Invest on Instagram, be sure to follow at Comic Book Invest CBSI. We are currently at like 9,175 followers. Desperately trying to get up to that 10,000 so we can do what we need to do. This has been, like I said, over a year-long project, a grind, and we are trying to put out as much content for you as possible. We're trying to give you that jab, jab, right hook, so we're not trying to ask you for anything without giving you something. So tons of exclusive bolos, tons of sales trend information goes on that Instagram. So yeah, it's been a while since we've plugged that. I want to go ahead and throw that out there and let the community know. Anybody in the Simpleman's Comics fam, please follow us on there. Brian and I both are throwing stuff out there all the time.
Gotcha. So again, thank you guys. Really appreciate you turning out for us tonight. Always a live conversation in the chat, and new weekly picks will be dropping on the channel Sunday morning, and then Monday night. Patreon members also remember we have the live hangout coming up this coming Monday night, so we will also have the hot and cold next Wednesday, and we will be live as always next Thursday 9 p.m. Eastern. So thank you guys for watching, and have a good night.